I saw this video by the Spiffing Brit the other day and went, oh, I haven't played Skyrim in years. All of the additions and the anniversary edition look neat. Yes, I'm easily impressed. And I've never done a challenge run before. So let's try to survive 100 days in hardcore survival Skyrim. It can't be too hard, right? And who knows, maybe I'll add in some zany clickbait goals to spice things up. I think this is the end of the run. Faendal? It was an honor. Well, we died to exposure. Well, that was just a knowledge check, not a skill issue. I fancy myself a gamer after all, and I know if and when I finally decide to pick up a book and read, challenges like this are going to become a cakewalk. But I'd rather hold the W key and smash my head into the wall like the Imperial Captain with this horse here, just like you're gonna do with that subscribe button. Because in a world of what boomers call helicopter parenting, I yearn for any opportunity to scrape my knee. Did that joke really make the final edit? The run starts pretty simply. Pretend we did Helgen Keep within the rules, pop out in Skyrim, and... It's been years since I've touched this game, and sure, nostalgia might factor in here, but in my unbiased opinion, this game still looks okay 11 years later. We steal every piece of scenery we can on the way down to the Guardian Stones, and make the toughest decision of the run. We need to rely on magic for almost everything in this run, so of course we take the Mage Stone. Try and fish, and remember that Bethesda in their infinite wisdom made this a weapon, meaning unless we want to jeopardize the sanctity of this run, we can't fish. We moved on to Riverwood, and these wolves that I couldn't be bothered to notice as I ransacked the local ecosystem attacked us, dealing like more than 25% of our health in a single bite, and there are 3 of them. We don't have a companion ready to die for us yet, so running was our only option, and leading these wolves to the defenseless people of Riverwood seemed like the best bet. We really need a companion to protect us moving forward, and the way that Sven bodied that wolf right there made me realize I need a himbo in my life. So I made up rumors about him to the woman he was romantically interested in, meaning there would be no reason whatsoever for him to stay in his hometown. Never mind, that was actually not how we got Sven on our side, that was how we made him an enemy for life. So we took the funny man Faendal with us as an alternative, stole Gerder's wedding ring, ransacked her home, stole the master bed from her for the night, and headed to Whiterun. On the way to Whiterun, we got jump scared by a wolf, which once again took a quarter of our health in a single bite, and got a few of those hits on us, which forced us to use our precious resources. This encounter showed me not just how careful we'll need to be so we don't bumble our way into encounters, but also how prepared we'll need to be if fighting a single wolf required us to use 3 of our health potions. You might be asking, well, where was Faendal? He could have helped. No, because he decided that cosplaying as your stepsister was a good use of everyone's time and got stuck behind this log. We helped the companions, raided farms for food and wheat so that we could plant some of our own, and Skyrim decided to do Skyrim things. So we're here in Whiterun, not just because that's where you go. Where are the guards? I had every intention of starting a quest inside Whiterun that would give us the Detect Life Tome so that we could power level Alteration a bit, but Bethesda had different plans. Genuinely, going into this challenge, one of my biggest fears were bugs that could break the game, and having one preventing us from getting inside the city was not very comforting when we were only 30 minutes into this run. So, instead of following the route I had planned for myself, I decided that now was our time to scour the plains of Whiterun for all they could offer us. We need alchemical ingredients. For those playing the home game, yes, this is the 3rd time I've mentioned the need to collect alchemy ingredients, and for good reason. Not only will we need any health and magical potions we can get our hands on, but alchemy will be helpful in almost every single situation. Thankfully, after we made our rounds, the guards finally decided to show up and let us in. We gaslit Jarl Bulgriff into believing we'd ever talk to him again, got a quest from Provintus, told the starving artist to stop shooting his shot with a single mother, and did a ton of other boring things I'll save you from, but trust me, they're important for the state of this run. Having slept, grabbed the backpack and some fire salts, more on those later, plus the pay-to-win spell Elemental Bolt, which is a total game changer by the way, I quickly convinced every vendor into giving me all of their gold in exchange for some deadly poisons, and then headed towards Rorikstead. We're off in this direction because there's a farm where and at we'll be able to put a ghost family to rest. I'm not really sure, I sort of mashed through everything, and then call it our own, where we can plant some of our alchemy ingredients to have a never-ending supply. Once our plants were gifted to the earth, we made our way back to Whiterun so that we could use the cart to travel to— holy shit, there's skeletons, out of nowhere. Look at our health! We got hit by a single attack. And I'm not one to exaggerate, but we lived on literally 1 HP. I cannot stress to you how dangerous this world is, especially for someone like me who has decided that looking at the pretty mountains takes precedence over being alert to the deadly world we find ourselves in. Anyways, we make our ways back to Whiterun because we need to take the cart to Riften where we can start the process of getting married by going to the Temple of Mara. Normally, I would not advise someone living that rockstar lifestyle like us to commit themselves to anyone, but having a spouse gives us huge advantages in the future, and sometimes marriages of convenience aren't always problematic, right? While in Riften, we ignored Brynjolf and did the usual. Loot all of the food and alchemy supplies we could, buy out merchants, which, wow, I never realized how many general good merchants were in this city, and that is something that makes this run as infuriating as it is fun for me. Having to meticulously keep track of any and all available resources like merchant inventories might sound like a waste of time to some, and probably is, but that level of gamification makes me view everything in this ancient game with a fresh perspective, which has done wonders for rekindling my interest in this series. Having finished up in Riften, we were in the closest location we could arrive to by cart for the first and easiest pieces of gear that was viable within this challenge run, so we went ahead and set off for Froki's shack. We got into trouble a couple of times as we traveled there, but the biggest threat was this child we didn't expect to meet. We arrived in one piece and could grab the diadem of the savant. Normally, I wouldn't really consider this item, but it is one of the only items that fits within the constraints of this run, and hey, who knows, that 5% magicka cost reduction to all schools of magic could be the difference between us surviving an encounter and not. Our next goal was finding someone to marry, and we knew we could do that in Whiterun. We also need to collect creep clusters from Eastmarch, as they will be useful for later, so for that reason, we'll be taking the scenic route to Whiterun through Ivarstead. On the way there, we thankfully did not stumble across a troll in its home, but just mentioning it means we jinxed ourselves and it spawned up the road. It was here we needed to make a tough choice. Run away and ensure the run will continue, dooming Faendal to certain death, or do we expend all of our resources on trying to fight off this troll? Faendal, you've let us down this entire run. I recognize you'd rather be pursuing your true calling elsewhere, and I shouldn't have dragged you out of your small town, so I'm sorry for this. We'll remember you. Now, where were those creep clusters? Nothing of note happened while collecting ingredients, but we were jump scared by a saber cat, which would have killed us in a single hit, and while running away, we ran into a random orc NPC that had it out for us. We retreated into this house, desperately hoping someone was home to protect us, but not only did the homeowner consider this a lover's quarrel and refuse to intervene, the random orc NPC who had it out for us showed off his dank teleportation abilities and was pretty close to ending our run. Thankfully, we remembered we could summon our own ball and chain as a diversion, so we did that and made it out of there. On the way to Whiterun, we came across a mage fighting a fire atronach. Remember earlier when I talked about fire salts? The concept behind using plants and payoffs is we've talked about alchemy in general throughout the course of this run, and while fire salts are an alchemy ingredient, they're also used in things called hot soups. Hot soups are food items that warm us up in cold environments, and these are actually going to be necessary when we need to adventure into northern regions or the mountains of Skyrim, and we are going to need to do that at some point in this run. Fire atronachs drop fire salts as loot. For that reason, we took a chance and Fire Emblem engaged. Definitely not the most dangerous of encounters, but any engagements are life and death, and we came out victorious. I'm just thankful it was worth our while. Arriving back in Whiterun, we grabbed Janessa as a mercenary and start looking for a spouse to do all the hard work back on our farm. We unfortunately find out that just because we did something nice for a single mother, she's not going to marry us. So we decide to head back to Riverwood, where we can do a simple quest for Camilla and ask for her hand in marriage. Thankfully, we won't need to complete all of Bleak Falls Barrow. We just need to get far enough to recover the Golden Claw. We avoid any fights we can on our way to find Arvel the Swift and totally gimmick the giant frost spider. This whole time, I was worried that when we got here, we would not be able to deal enough damage to Arvel the Swift to loot the claw, but I guess we just underestimate ourselves. Claw in hand, we get back to Riverwood to finish the quest and make Camilla our wife. Except, wait, what? I've never done this before. I recovered the claw, just like was asked of me, and thought I could turn it in. But, because the Golden Claw is needed to continue through Bleak Falls Barrow, a part of the main quest for the uninitiated, I can't just hand it in. Well, that was a waste of time and resources, but hey, we learned something. And education is awesome. Having had our first foray into a cold region, we really needed some better clothes. So we set out for Solitude because that is home to a tailor, and while we're here, we can grab a ton of hanging moss for alchemy. After spending the last couple of days together, it is like something clicked. We could marry Janessa, and she was into it. So we proposed the arrangement on the street and got things in order. We'd marry Janessa. With her as our spouse, and the one running the farm, it would be unfair to also ask her to protect us on our adventures. So we hired the mercenary Belran to take her place. We headed back to Riften and did nothing of note, but to keep you, dear viewer, in the know, we spent time casting Detect Life to level Alteration a bit and bought out any merchants while the wedding was set up. You know, they say getting married is one of the best days of your life, and I guess they're right. I have my total of 2 friends here in this chapel and oodles of tax benefits ahead of me, so things could be worse, yeah? We say our vows, tell Janessa that now that we're married, it won't be living in sin if she comes back to our place, and we'll head there alongside her. Back on the farm, not only does Janessa tell us she wants to start a business and share the profits with us, she also cooks us a meal which provides us some minor benefits, but at the very least reminds us of home. Earlier, we planted the necessary crops and they are ready to be harvested. Damn, I thought we'd only get a single wheat in return for planting it, but instead we get 4 wheat per plot. That's incredible. Like, we have more wheat here on our farm than all of the farms outside of Whiterun, which is allegedly the breadbasket of Skyrim. I'm not sure when these crops are going to grow back, and as we've already established, reading isn't exactly our strong suit, so I hope we make use of this farm again during the course of the run and don't forget it. At this point in the run, gold is becoming the choke point. We need to gain as much gold as we can because leveling destruction on legendary difficulty is nearly impossible, but like a tale as old as time, we can use the power of money to get ahead of the competition. So we head for Solitude. We decide to take the road to keep things interesting, and we can stop in Morthal on the way because there is an alchemist there. On the way to Morthal, we encounter a fire Atronach, and we keep losing our companion. Shit, Belran, why'd you show up out of nowhere to taunt us with this bear? I thought this would be a more serious fight, but with Belran actually engaging with the enemies in melee, unlike that funny elf whose name I've already forgotten, it really makes fights like this with single enemies pretty easy. You may be asking why we are heading back to Solitude since we are just there. The shops have refreshed their stock, meaning we can grab more gold, and the court wizard of the Blue Palace is a destruction trainer. Now that we've gotten our feet wet and are in the thick of this run, it's time to start working towards completing those goals. And a great place to start would be a Daedric's best friend. If you didn't know, during this quest we get Barbas, the immortal Daedric hound, as our companion, and if we conveniently not finish the quest, he'll continue to follow us on our adventures, and for this challenge we can really use all the help we can get. Unfortunately, we need to be level 10 for this quest to become available to us, and we're not there yet. I'll save you from the grinding, but we essentially took the cart between Windhelm, Whiterun, Riften, and Solitude, selling potions to make money and paying to train destruction. Once we finished with that boring stuff, we took the cart to Falkreath and got the quest started. I initially thought one of the more difficult parts of the quest with Barbas was going to be traveling on foot for extended periods of time in the harsh environments. However, that didn't prove to be the challenge in this escort mission. No, it was the never-ending random encounters. These weren't any more dangerous than any other random encounters we've had, and in case you've forgotten, one wrong step in this run is certain death. In fact, look at this right here. We have a fugitive run up on us as the combat music begins, which forces us into a dialogue box and encumbers us since he forced an axe into our inventory. We assess the situation and see that our red guard is caught in a 3-way with a frostbite spider and a bandit. We foolishly attempt to damage the spider with an AoE spell, but we hurt the red guard, gaining us a bounty, and Belran's familiar turns its aggro on us, which I didn't even know was possible. We tried to escape, just to find that a convoy of Thalmor, elf cops, have spawned somewhere behind us, know about our bounty, and choose to do what 40% of police do. Fortunately for us, we had potions of resist magic and resist shock, so we could take a hit from their spells. Then, this hunter, in the middle of combat mind you, trapped us in another dialogue box. We panicked, mashed through the dialogue, and found ourselves expending all of our resources as another random encounter with a necromancer spawned up the road. As the dust settled, we just needed to finish off the necromancer and the Thalmor prisoner, who was never freed, by the way. They're just out here swinging a greatsword. I respect that. Now that that's over, well, dear viewer, I'm just as shocked as you that we were able to make it through that encounter, or those encounters. I wouldn't call it unscathed, as we expended half of our potions, and unless we stumble across a random alchemy table, we're not going to be able to replenish our stock. In case you didn't have your listening ears on, those are all random encounters. That's it, just random and have nothing to do with the quest that we are on. No, the quest we're on has a whole dungeon filled with vampires for us to deal with, so wish us luck. We take 5, hang out with some good old boys to warm up, and by day 12 we find ourselves outside the quest dungeon. As we set off into this vampire nest, we're actually surprisingly effective at taking down the weakest of enemies, only caveat being they need to be alone and we need to get the jump on them. Outside of those specific instances, these combats are excruciatingly long. Our pitiful damage output leaves a lot to be desired, and the vampires keep raising dead bodies. I'm not even sure how they do it. It's like their raise dead spell just locks onto a corpse from anywhere in the room and boom, it's raised. Remember that idea of a random alchemy table from earlier? Thankfully, there was an alchemy lab inside this cave that we can make use of, which is very needed. By the end of the second fight in this dungeon, we've already run out of both magicka and health potions, so without this here, we probably would not be able to finish the dungeon. We slow and steady our way through the dungeon until we get to the final room. I was worried about this. I knew there would be a master vampire and another vampire plus their minions, but Barbas is awesome and we have a killer vantage point making all my worries for nothing. We have a chat with a statue who fancies themselves a comedian to progress this quest, and wow, this run is going so well. We'll head over to Riften to take the cart as close as we can to further this quest. I didn't think we'd make it through that dungeon. Things are really looking up for this run. For those of you who can sniff out the setup to a bad joke, or if you just checked the timeline of this video, you knew this is where it was going to end. A single bite from a frostbite spider random encounter was the death of us. I really didn't expect that. I've never once respected a frostbite spider, and I really didn't know it had the potential to one-shot us. I looked up the numbers later and found that a single power attack, in this case the spider's bite, deals 135 points of physical damage and 30 points of poison damage immediately, followed by another 60 points of poison damage over the next 2 seconds. I know I've made jokes about not reading, and that's because I went into this run as blind as possible. I needed a way to enjoy Skyrim again, and this challenge run has been so much fun for me. I said it earlier, but in trying this challenge run, I've had to think about Skyrim in new ways, and in doing so, I'm actually excited to play more. I've even been playing again for fun on my own, which is something I've tried to do so many times over the years, only to get bored and put the controller down.